studies have shown that being married can actually reduce stress. But now something new that you may not actually need to have that piece of paper to get the same stress relief. I'm bringing psychologist Patrick Markey in on this one. All right, I want to get your impression here. What do you think of this new research?
Well, it's a nice piece of evidence to kind of add to the building amount that's been suggesting that being married has some positive health benefits. That in general, people who are married tend to have lower levels of heart disease, they tend to be less addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they just live longer than individuals who are single.
And a lot of people might say that being married is awfully stressful. In fact, how is the stress determined, or the stress reduction determined?
Well, in this study, they examined a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is basically typically a very good hormone that we, when we feel stressed out, our body produces it.
Okay.
The problem is if we're under stress for a prolonged period of time, cortisol can suppress our immune system. And so what this study found is that individuals, regardless if they were married or just in a long-term relationship, did not experience these heightened levels of cortisol when they're under stressful events.
So we're talking about these long-term relationships, but it's a secure relationship that's key here, right? I mean, relationships have lots of ups and downs.
Certainly, yeah. In fact, I think that's important to remember that this is examining basically the average relationship. So certainly there are some relationships that might be overly stressful, which could kind of counteract a lot of these findings. And so for most people, though, fortunately our relationships are pretty happy, and we're pretty happy in them. And so they have this positive health benefit.
You know, lots of people have been weighing in on this, yourself and many other psychiatrists, even some from Penn, and they were saying that this proves that there's nothing different about being married. Basically, it's making it sound like marriage is just kind of a piece of paper.
Well, no single study ever proves anything, but
Right.
It's certainly consistent with that idea that the findings are consistent with all these other findings that have suggested that being married has positive health benefits. Now this study says, well, if you're just in a long-term relationship, you're also likely to experience these positive benefits.
Interesting. Now, there's something else that wasn't necessarily addressed in this, but it's something that you brought out. And it's sort of, this type of research kind of shows that long-term relationships tend to benefit men more than women. I mean, I think that sort of fights the stereotype that we always hear, that it's women that always want to get married and men think it's a ball and chain.
Yeah, that what prior studies suggest, except for this one did not find a gender difference, but pretty much every other study has found that men benefit so much more from long-term relationships than women. That basically what happens when we're involved in these long-term relationships, we become more healthy, that single men are not very healthy, but when we're married, we tend to adopt our wives' behaviors, their health behaviors, and we tend to have limited social...
We do a pretty good job of
You do a very
right
good job of taking care of us. Our social networks get bigger. Again, single men, our social networks, not so great, but once we're married, wives start to make plans for us and our networks increase. So when we do have a stressful event that happens to us and we happen to be married, we have this larger social network that kind of buffers us from that stress.
Yeah, we're the reason you never run into things like toothpaste and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
We think ahead.
You guys take care of us. Some might call it nagginess, but I call it
I don't know what you're
healthy
talking about.
behaviors. It certainly helps.
Patrick Markey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Interesting stuff, Thomas.
You know,